Welcome back, listeners. I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Reverend Kathi Lockwood. She is the author of Adoption Made in Heaven, A Christmas Eve Adventure, and The King and the Monster. Kathi, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you are today.
I'm very happy today. I'm very happy to be talking to you. I think you do a wonderful job with your podcast, and I'm very excited to be able to participate in the healing, because the healing of the world is what we're all here about, I think. And I'm just very happy to be here. So thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming on. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I have been on a spiritual journey since probably 30, 40 years almost now. And I've wrote my first book back in 1996, I believe. I was one of the first books on Amazon. I didn't even know what Amazon was when that book came out. I got a review from Midwest Book Reviews, and they said, "Oh, we're putting your book on Amazon." And I'm like, "What's Amazon?" So that story was written about adoption because I adopted my second child, which is my son. And the story of the adoption was very unusual because my late husband was an attorney. And one day this woman walked into his office who knew him by reputation and said, "Mr. Lockwood, I'm 5 months pregnant. And I know you're a wonderful man. Will you please find a home for my child, a loving home for my child?" And so she walked out and he called me. And I remember the room I was in and the telephone that I answered. And he said, "Kathi, this woman came in and she has a baby. I think it's going to be a boy. And do you want this baby?" Now, I had previous miscarriages, had a miscarriage before my daughter was born, had a miscarriage after she was born. And that baby would have been 2 months old at the time that I received this phone call. So I'm sure I would love to have this child. So 2 weeks before he was born, I had this dream. And in my dream, I'm holding this big, blonde, chunky boy, which turned out to be that exact child. My late husband was Italian, so our children are dark hair, but he was like a big, chunky blonde boy that 2 weeks after my dream arrived into my arms. So years later, he came home from school one day very upset that one of his friends said that I wasn't his real mommy. And I felt the same. That I felt that it didn't really matter how my children came into the family, that they were all like destined to be there. They were like God's gift to me, God's gift to our family. And whether he was born to us or adopted by us, he was equally part of the family and equally belonged in the family. And so I wrote the book about adoption made in heaven, where these two little angel and cherub up in the waiting to be born heaven, they do all these little things. You know, they learn how to squeeze fingers, or they learn how to hiccup. And every time they learn something about being a baby, they would get a star on their halo. And when they got enough stars on their halo, the great guardian angel would say, would say, now you can see your parents. And so she'd do this little chant and she'd say, "Show me mommy, show me dad, Amy's parents will soon be glad." And then the clouds and they look down and they see their parents. And Amy notices that her mother doesn't have the glow of life in her that Charlie's mother has. So she goes to the great guardian angel and says, "Hey, wait a minute, why doesn't my mommy have that?" And the great guardian angel says, "Because you're going to be delivered to your mommy and daddy by God's special friend." And then she does another chant, "Show me the one with love so dear, to do God's will for Amy here. And then Amy sees her birth mother, and her birth mother is going to deliver her to the parents and to her family where she belongs. And as time goes on, I realize this whole issue of trauma from adoption that people have. And I think for me, I'd like to look at my book on adoption as like a paradigm shifting book. It isn't that you were given away. You were just delivered to the place where you belong, not given away from where you belong to someplace else. And there's a lot of history in spiritual writings that would evidence that, because God's direction, especially at birth, is very powerful. As we go living our lives, we have free will, we can change a lot of things. But, where we're born is pretty, and to whom and under what circumstances is pretty much a divine design.
Right.
And that's what this book illustrates, that it's a divine design for you to be where you are. And I would hope that this shift in the paradigm would lessen the trauma that so many people feel with the adoption issue. So that's why I
love that. Yes, I love that, because that will definitely help a lot of children who are dealing with that, especially because we internalize certain things and we don't understand everything. I feel that definitely brings a wonderful understanding, because I never looked at it that way. That was beautiful.
So that was my book on the adoption made in heaven, and it was sold quite a few thousands of copies. It was very, and so that book is on Amazon to this day still. And then a few years ago, I noticed in some of your writings that you talk about the light for healing resides within each of us. And I've always thought that, Christ has always been, Christ is the light of the world, but really we're all the light of the world.
Yes.
And that is the message of my Christmas book. So it's like two children are they're like, the little girl is a little, I guess the word is like a little nasty little girl, and the boy is very shy. And they're at the Christmas Eve pageant. And then that night, the angel comes to the window and hauls them back through space and time, and they land in the field with the shepherds just before the angel appears. And so the angel comes and tells them, Christ was born in Bethlehem. And so they go along with the shepherds to find Christ, and they help them. They're like, oh, well, we can't find him. This is all a dream. We should go home. But the two children, they know that Christ was born. And so a bird that symbolizes the Holy Spirit talks to them in this book. It's a talking bird story too. And they follow the talking bird, and they find Jesus in the manger. And when they find him, they see this glow, and they say, look, he really is the light of the world. And then Mary and Joseph are in the background sleeping, but the baby has blankets have come off of him. And so they have this existential question that this is God, but he's a baby and he's cold. Do we dare go near him? And so they'd agree that Jesus wouldn't have been born a baby if he didn't want people to be near him or near God. So they went up and they wrap him up in his blanket again. And when they do that, lights sparkle, and when all the lights die down, they look and they see that glow within themselves, and then they see that glow within everyone. And then the Christmas angel comes back and says, well, you've learned what you're here to learn. And they go back to the very beginning when they're at the pageant, only this time when they're in the pageant, they're different. They're kinder, they're braver. And the little boy's line that earlier in the story, he just got so scared he ran off the stage and never said it. But in this second time after their experience, his line is, "Behold the light of the world." And on the stage, this little plastic baby doll lights up on the stage, and then they like, oh, they remember everything. And then they look out at the audience and they can see that glow in everyone in the audience too. So it's like a story like we all have the light of love.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
I like that.
the little girl, by the way, asked the angel, because she knew that, she says, well, what about mean people?
Uh-huh.
Like, what about mean people? Do mean people have this too? And the angel answers, well, God is still there, even if people forget. People may
Right.
forget that they have the light of love within them, but God never forgets them. God is still
Right.
there. So
I
that's
love that. I love that a lot, especially when you said the part about Jesus coming in being a baby, and if we wouldn't, people are attracted to babies. People want to play with babies, and that kind of invites them in, and that's kind of
yeah,
how it started, how his journey started. So I really like how you put that together, and you also, when you were speaking about the book, your first book, what was it, The Adoption Made in Heaven? You stated that you had a dream or like a vision from seeing what your son would look like. And I
yeah.
think that is beautiful because God speaks to us all in different ways, and I'm one of those as well. So I like that he speaks to you through your dreams, through your visions. And I feel I hope that we can bring more of that. More of that's going to kind of come to light, how God speaks to us, because a lot of
Yes.
people seem to be afraid of saying, hey, God spoke to me in a dream and he showed me this.
Well, it would, to me, it just confirmed my belief that this
Mhm.
was my son. And one time he said to me, why was I adopted? I said, maybe I can't carry maybe my body doesn't carry girls. And
Mhm.
you needed to be a girl. You needed to be exactly who you are, but my body wouldn't carry baby
Mhm.
boys. And
Yeah.
I said, would you rather be a girl? And he said, no, no, no.
Yeah.
So you
That
have
is
who
great.
you are, and his genetics and his everything had to be who he was, but maybe it wasn't genetically connected to me, but I had to be his parent. And
Right.
my late husband, we, in the divine design, I knew I was going to be the mother of that little chubby blonde baby boy that I was holding in my
Right.
dream. And there he was 2 weeks later.
Right. And then before we get to your third book, I kind of want to speak a little bit about you and your journey, and how your journey started into becoming an author.
Well, I started to be an author with my son coming home crying, and that's what started this whole thing about the first book on adoption.
Mhm.
Um, but I I've been one that for years have always thought about how our belief about the world around us changes the world. We're co-creators with God in our own world.
Yes.
And and then I realized that myself years ago, um, when I was in a very abusive marriage,
Mhm.
and I was very young, and it lasted a very short period of time, but it started me on my journey of spiritual development, prayer, meditation, and being able to change my life to something something that was a happier
Right.
experience than
Yeah.
before.
Mhm.
And during that, I know there's a lot of talk about we create our own reality, and I think we do, because as divine spirits inhabiting a body, we have a divine life and a divine energy within us, and by directing that and focusing that and paying attention to it, we can create a beautiful life for ourselves that's full of love. Divine love is, God is love. We want to
Yes.
love. God is compassion. We have a life of compassion. God is all joy. I'm very engaged with thinking, we should be joyful because we're living God's life. We're expressing God. Each one of us is an expression of God, and that expression would be love and would be joy if we allow that full expression to move through us.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that how God, he's just so strategic, and the way he orchestrates things, and how he speaks to us through others, and how he shows us who he is through others' creativity, and how that creativity is born. And I feel it's kind of as though you went from strife to strength. And I like that you're definitely showing us that.
Well, being the wife of an abuser is probably, it's obviously a very bad place to be.
Right.
One of the first things I learned, which I think is one of the most important things back when I decided I needed to change my life, was that I wasn't a victim. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of people say, well, that person is a victim. Their husband did beat them. And I said, and I know that I participated in that. If I'm not going to take on the responsibility of having participated in some way into this bad thing that happened to me, then I am helpless.
Right.
The only way I can have any power and any strength is to recognize that I'm also a participant. And when, as a participant, I can change. I don't
Mhm.
have to be that person. I can change. And that gives me power, not that I'm blaming myself. Kathy, it's
Right.
your fault. It wasn't my fault, but I did participate. And by being able to understand that, I can change my whole life because now I'm no longer a victim. I'm
Mhm.
empowered to live the life I want to live. And
Right. And I like that. And it's, to me, it's honorable to have been able to survive something like that and still be able to speak about it. So I
yeah, it
thank
was
you for
a long
sharing
time
that.
ago. And I it's almost like it happened to somebody else at this point
Mhm.
because it
Yeah.
was a long time ago. It's like, oh, that the poor girl, but it was
Yes.
the poor girl. But
Yes.
she learned from that and she moved on and she's happy today. So
And that's what I love. I feel as though the trauma that we go through, I feel that God has this beautiful way of making it seem like such a distant memory where it's like I remember it, but it's very vague. And I love that he does that for us. That way we don't just sit with long suffering. So
yeah, because
I just thank you.
if we do sit with it, then we're still that person.
Right.
We really do have to, at least this is what happened to me. Oh, one time I was talking to the illustrator of my book, the
Mhm.
angel book, the adoption book. And I said, oh, I just wrote a book about divorce, but I don't know if I should do anything with it because I'm not divorced. And he looked at me and said, yes, you are. Oh, I forgot. So when you talk about being able to forgive, and I
Yeah.
went through the whole forgiveness thing, and I called him up and I said, I forgive you for this, because forgiveness is such an important part of moving on. And I had
Absolutely.
gone through, this was like 10 years later, and I had gone through the forgiveness stage and I had gone through everything. So to the point where I even forgot.
Yeah.
And and he was the only person who knew that I had been married and divorced already for 10 years ago. I knew him back then.
Yeah.
And when he told me, oh yes, you are divorced, I was like, oh, you're right, I forgot.
Yeah.
But that's really but it illustrated to me how important that forgiveness is. If I didn't
Yeah.
forgive him, I could never have forgotten. And if I didn't forget, I could never just live the life that I wanted to live if I was still holding
Absolutely.
that as part of my pain.
Yes, because forgiveness is really for us. And then
Yeah.
it's like forgive first, and you can worry about the why later. Let's understand why later, but just forgive first so you can release it.
Yeah. One of my favorite phrases I use a lot when I see people doing crazy things is hurt people,
Mm-hmm.
and I forgive you for hurting me, but I'm not going to live with that hurt anymore.
Right. Absolutely. It's about
I
releasing
have
it.
problems.
Yes, release it and let it heal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about The King and the Monster.
Well, that book was written because my son had been struggling with addiction for a long time, and I just feel so bad for him because it's such a struggle. Once you get into it, it's very difficult, very very
Mhm.
difficult. So at one point, a couple of years ago, he he decided he was going to go into actually a year-long treatment because he was
Mhm.
like, I have to take care of myself. I have a family. I want to live. He called me up and said, Mom, I need your help. I need to go into detox. I want my life back. He had been, sober for 3 or 4 years and doing really well. And then he fell into that trap again.
Yeah.
And he called me desperately, calling for help. And so, working with some friends of his in the sober living environment, he moved into a year-long program. Well, my daughter-in-law called me and she said, Kathy, can you please, I had just finished the Christmas book, and she said, can you please write a book to explain adoption to Charlotte, who is my granddaughter,
Mhm.
who was 6 at the time. And I said, oh, sure, I'll write that book. And then I hung up and I'm like, how am I ever going to do that? I was like, how do you write a book to explain addiction? Like, the
Uh-huh.
seriousness of that to a child. So
Yeah.
I was, I just put it out of my mind for about a week or week to 10 days. And I thought, sure, I'll write that book. And then I didn't even think about it. But then I was traveling and my flight had been delayed in Chicago. And I was with my daughter and her 2 little children. And we finally got on the plane and late at night. So by 10 o'clock at night, we're flying out to Los Angeles, and at 30,000 feet, I had my another granddaughter's sleeping on my lap, and I thought, oh, I can finally, meditate because I do
Uh-huh.
love meditating every day. So I put my earbuds in and my silent noise canceling earbuds, and I start to meditate. And before right from the very beginning, almost as soon as I closed my eyes, I saw King and the Monster. And then this whole book just came to me page by page by page
Yeah.
by page. And I'm like, I better write this down,
Yes.
So I couldn't I couldn't use a tray in front of my seat because I had a little baby's head
Yeah.
on my. So I used her tray from the next seat, and I just typed from a distance and the whole first draft of The King and the Monster, and it just came to me in that way. I did, consulted with people in recovery, and they gave me little, hints of tweaks here and tweaks there, um, to just change the story a little bit to fine tune it. But basically, the story in the book is the one that came to me that night.
Yeah.
In um, in I believe it was like a divine intervention
Yeah.
because it's a beautiful story. It's gotten some very, very good reviews from therapists, and they're like, this book should be in every school library. This book should be in every therapist's office. And and I think it is a very powerful, powerful book. It does a number of things. The first thing is that the king is a wonderful guy
Mm-hmm.
who loves his family, but he has a shadow in his heart, and that shadow is, as Gabriel Maté talks about, the shadow of trauma. And Gabriel Maté, Dr. Maté, is a very well renowned a therapist specializing in addiction, and he basically feels that all addiction is caused by trauma. That trauma could be that person's life, or it could be a pre-generational trauma passed down from you. And there is evidence that there is generational trauma in your DNA. But the king has that shadow in his heart in my book. And his friends are like, come here to the quicksand pit. It'll be fun. And he's like, well, maybe it will help this trauma in this shadow in my heart. So he goes and he puts his hand in the quicksand pit, and then he discovers it was a trap. And addiction is a trap. It isn't, there's nobody that says, oh, I think I'm just going to go, live in a gutter. I think I'm going to lose my family. I think I want to lose my home, everything. It is a trap that that is deceitful. And one of the people that advised me on it said, well, in the beginning, the monster acts like your friend. So in the beginning, he started playing with the monster, but then the monster took over and he started acting like a monster. And then he became more and more distant from his family, who didn't know what was going on with him. And then at some point, he calls out for help. So he has a team of angels. I think we all have a team of angels. I actually, in the book, I have it was difficult for me to describe this to the illustrator, but the angels are like sparks of light. And they're always there, and they're always trying to warn him, don't go to the quicksand pit or do this. And he finally calls out for help. And the angels say, well, go to the wisdom tree. And then he goes to the wisdom tree and he says, and the wisdom tree says, well, here are the healing helpers. Well, there are two things about this that were very important to me. One is when he calls out for help, I basically use the same language that my son used when he called me for help. He said, Mom, I want my old life back. I miss my family. I love my family. I want my life back. And so the king says that. And the angels say, go to the wisdom tree. The thing about the angels, just as an aside, I did this program one time called holotropic breathing. And in this program, you lie down and you listen to music and you breathe differently for about 3 hours. It's a 3-hour process, but it brings you into a slightly altered state of consciousness. And while I was doing that, I saw these lights over my head, maybe 10 of them at least. And they were very bright. And I knew that they were my angels. And I called them Team Kathi because they were very real. The love that they showed me was so intense. I was like crying from the emotion of love. And so I put team, so I wrote, the king's team was always there for him. We all have a team of angels that are helping guide us. And the king's team looked like my angels. They were sparks of light. And then I gave little wings and eyes so you could see that they were angels. And so the angels talk to the king and leave him messages. And so he goes to the healing house. And once he gets to the healing house, he learns, that he doesn't learn new things. He's reminded of his bold and beautiful heart. He's reminded of his inner wisdom. He's reminded of all the good things that he already is. And then the healing helpers give him armor to fight against the monster in the future. And then he goes home and he lives back with his family again, the king and the monster. It's a story of hope. And Gabriel Maté, one of the quotes I use, is as long as there is life, there is hope. And it's another part of the story is that shadow was in his heart long before the children were born, because children often will say, this is my fault. And, it's obvious that it was not their fault at all. It shrunk when they were born, but it was still there.
And I like that you said in the quicksand pit, because when I was going through mine, I wrote a poem that it was called Building a Staircase While You're Standing in Quicksand. And
Mm.
that's where that divine, it's just so amazing how God, well, he can pull us out of anything, and when you said the love of your angels that you felt, it's just something that you feel like, yes, we can visibly, some of us can visibly see it, but it is definitely a feeling, and that's how you know that your angels are definitely with you. And
Yeah.
it's so amazing. Like you said, it brings tears to your eyes because you've never felt such overwhelming love before.
Yeah. The power of that love is
Yes.
just immense. And it does,
Yes.
I feel that God is an experience. I don't know if we can intellectually understand God at
Mhm.
all, but we can experience God. And in those
Absolutely.
moments of really deep and powerful love, that's the experience of God. And
Yeah. And I love how he channels through you, downloads, or uses us as his vessel, and the
yes,
way that you're able to elaborate and break it down, it's phenomenal what you do. And I thank you, because it's just like you definitely have a gift. Like, you are definitely operating in your purpose and being able to help children understand these things in the way that you're able to help them understand. It's absolutely beautiful.
well,
And oh, go
uh,
ahead.
I was going to say the reason why I write children's books is because if children understand
Yeah.
the these issues with a different I like to say I write through the lens of love, through
Yeah.
the divine love is the lens that I look at life through. And if children can see that, I wasn't given away, I was just delivered, or my father still loves me although he was caught in a trap and it has nothing to do with me, but his love is strong and powerful anyway. If children can understand all these things, then they don't have to see a therapist for the rest of their
Yeah.
life. Just get it into their hearts and understanding that, from the very beginning, that's why I write children's books, to help children start with a very powerful belief in the love that supports us all.
Yeah. And so, as far as, I mean, I understand how well you help children, but when you were going through adversity in your life, how did you help yourself, especially mentally?
Um, I that's a really interesting question, but I always like, well, I guess because I believe the
Hmm.
same thing that I'm teaching, of course, that everything has a reason.
Yeah.
And when my husband was killed, I talked to my aunt, and she had lost her husband too. And she said, well, we're looking at a tapestry from the bottom where it just seems confusing, and there's knots and strings and everything, and it just doesn't make any sense. But if you're looking at it from the top, it's a beautiful pattern.
Yeah.
So when I see things like that happen, like my husband being killed, and I understood it. I didn't like it, but I understood that it was part of a larger plan that maybe I just didn't comprehend.
Yeah.
And that there was something good about it, even though it was so tragic for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I basically got through it. Is I understand that we're looking at things through the human eyes, and when we can get a peek at the situation through the divine eyes, it makes sense and it's okay. And so,
Yeah.
it's just a hard thing to adjust to when, like I guess I feel my husband's death was particularly tragic, but everybody feels that way. But my husband was crossing the street one morning and he was killed. And my children were 12, 14, and 16. And when I woke up, my whole life had changed. And it was
Yeah.
a very, very, very difficult thing to go through. And my new book actually addresses that in some way. My new book, which is just in the design stage right now with the illustrator, talks about two sparks of life coming into the world. They are sent out by the source of all light, and they come into the world, and they're talking to each other, and they say, "Oh, you sound like you're going to be fun. Let's go to the same family." So one is born as a puppy, and one is born as a little girl, and they grow up together. And then the puppy, they speak in spark language, which is a language of the heart. So the puppy looks at the little girl and says, "I'm ready to move on to another adventure now." And she cries because she loses him, but he still stays around and communicates with her and helps her through the grieving period. And at the end of the story, she realizes that their love will never die. They'll always love each other, the dog, and then the last page is there are other sparks of life and love coming into her life. So as we live our life, we bring people in that we love, or dogs in this case, and they never leave. When people die, they never leave. Their love is always there, and they never really leave us. Our love is just as strong for my mother now as it was when she was alive. Yeah. And then we still have more love to live, more children to be born, more grandchildren. As our life goes on, we just build our love as we live with more and more people and love more and more people. So the new book is not about death, but really about the survival of the spirit and the survival of love, despite the loss of the physical body.
And what's the name of your new book?
Well, that I'm trying to work on. If anybody has any suggestions.
Yeah.
Right now I have it as Two Sparks or Love Never Dies. I really haven't come up with, what I'm positive about the story, the title.
Yeah.
The story is written. It's the title. I'm still what is the best title for this? It'll come to me within a period of time. But if anyone has any suggestions, I'm open.
Absolutely, it'll definitely come.
This book, I don't know.
What was that?
What would you name this book?
I don't know. There's so many things, and because I don't know. It's a very powerful book, and it brings immense understanding. So I don't know that, because that could even help with all types of loss, not even just loss of, through death, but loss of a relationship. I mean, there's just so many different things that could stem from that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've just finished the last version of it, I think, this week. And I'm working, the illustrators has to do a few more drawings to finish it off. But I have to figure out the name pretty soon.
When is the release date?
I think that practically I would say in January or February.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to look forward to that and want to know what the name of that book is. And I have another question. So I know it seems like you definitely just have this amazing way of getting through to children. What would you say about children who are trying to cope with depression or stress, anxiety, and they just don't really know how to channel those emotions?
Like, what age are you thinking? Are you talking about?
I would say more so middle school and high school age.
There are programs. I think meditation is probably one of the, but it really depends. Like a really good guided meditation will help a person identify with their higher self.
Yes.
With the love that is the essence of their very being. And I would say that meditation changed my life.
Yeah.
And as far as depression goes, there's so much stress, I would like to say, turn off the television.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's also, I don't know if it's true or evidential, but I think that one of the things I used to experience like this winter depression. Like I'd have my family home for Christmas and everything was wonderful and joyful. And then in January, I would get into this deepest depression. And I thought it was because of the lighting or the sun or something. But I started playing music just in the background in my house with, different vibrational music that they say. And then I noticed I didn't feel that bad. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot out there that will help support emotional health and depression. And I think meditation would be a really good way to start, but a guided meditation. And I don't know if anyone would be interested, but I think also Qigong is a very powerful movement of energy. First time I did this, I saw a ball. I practiced Qigong years ago, and I literally saw a ball of Qi about this big floating in the air. So there is some real energy there, and that energy is like a consciousness, and the consciousness is, of course, the divine consciousness of love. So practicing Qigong would be a very powerful thing to do, because you're basically moving around. You're focused on drawing towards yourself the energy of love, the energy of the divine, the Qi energy. And that, I think, is a very powerful movement. So meditation, Qigong, turning off the television, turning off, not paying, or just being very cautious and careful of what you. I always told my children, they would laugh at me. I told them the R movies, R is for rotten. But basically, what you're eating becomes part of your body, but what you're thinking and what you're exposing your mind to becomes part of your thought process.
Right.
You want to be very careful about what you allow into your brain. Do you really watch the movies where you're watching gory scenes of bodies being torn apart? I don't think so. Not for me. But those are the kinds of things that are going into your brain, then that becomes part of your thought process. So you want to be very careful about be aware, I say is a better word. Be aware of what you ingest mentally.
Yes.
What you're ingesting mentally. Because, if anybody who ingests enough of depressing things is going to feel depressed.
Right. Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that so much. I love how you just kind of bring things to an understanding. So that is absolutely amazing. But it is nice to eliminate distractions. And sometimes it's just about growing in wisdom and growing steady, so we can understand our stillness and allow him to kind of speak the loudest during that time. So I like that.
Yes. Yeah. Meditation is a very important process of learning who we are. Remember, Teilhard de Chardin said, we're not physical bodies having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And so what is your website? So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they reach out to you?
My website is booksbykathi.com. And it's a Kathi, booksbykathi.com. And my email is Kathi@booksbykathi.com. And I'm certainly happy to talk to anybody or get any ideas for the title of my new book or thoughts on anything. Or I'd be happy to hear from anyone, any of your listeners.
Well, I thank you very, very much. And I know I'm definitely going to be thinking about that title as well to see if I can help you. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I greatly appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I I really appreciate being here, and I just admire the work you're doing, and God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Well, listeners, that's it. I'm Robin Black, and today's guest was Miss Kathi Lockwood, and I want everyone to stay blessed. Again, I'm your host, Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. If you're navigating grief, toxic relationships, trauma, financial pressure, or the slow work of rebuilding after setback piled upon setback, this channel is for you. Our community now spans 118 countries, proof that real stories travel and that healing accelerates when we carry one another. Share your story, lend your voice, and let grace turn pain into purpose. Book your podcast in the link below and share your story. Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good evening, and good night. Stay blessed.